Keegan, have you even had breakfast here before? I've heard it's good. FYI.
Yeah, I think it. Not breakfast first. I should take some for lunch.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fair. Okay. All right, good people. We're gonna start as soon as I verify that I am ready to go online. And I should be live.
Yeah, I agree with that. Oh, and I think when I was thinking that maybe I had to put my wrong temperature. Yeah, you I have a orange, like, shirt. Sweater, like. Yes. Different layers. Good morning. Water. They have a 65, but no again.
I know it's cold as sick last week.
This side, on that side, it's back to flare.
All right, well, I'm going to trust that I'm live and we're good to go. Okay, cool. All right. So thank you guys for bearing with me and being patient. I really appreciate it. I apologize for being late. Trying to get everything set up because I have things I want to show. So, as I said to you guys earlier, we are going to this morning's topic is about the crisis of having grassroots leadership that comes from the community up. As we've been discussing, when you don't have leadership that comes from the community, comes from your people, leadership that's bottom up, you get leadership that's top down, and they don't always have your best interests at heart. So we're gonna watch two clips this morning. One from a documentary I encourage all of you guys to see if you haven't already seen it. It's called Lowndes County and the Road to Black Power. Don't worry, Keeping, I'll send you the link as well. But yeah, Lowndes County and the Road to Black Power. Because it is an absolutely eye-opening video as to the progression of grassroots, poor and impoverished Black people understanding that if we're the majority in a space, then we need to be running that space. And that is a mindset that's extremely simple, but from that time in 1966 to now, we have yet to recapture that understanding in that if we're the majority in the space, we need to be running that space. And that's a problem for a lot of reasons, and we're going to get into why that's such a big problem. So we're going to watch that brief clip, and then we're going to watch a clip from our sister organization, Tuesday Morning Breakfast, that happens in Shreveport, Louisiana. Every Tuesday morning, the same thing we do here, they do there. They've been doing it for a lot longer, so they got a larger group, but we will get there, I'm convinced. They were talking about the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, how it affected them, their community, their family members. And some of the things that they say is extremely important that we understand because the connections with the brothers and sisters in Lowndes County 60 plus years ago, those connections are still relevant because we have yet to understand the importance of mobilizing and organizing ourselves politically so that we can control the spaces where we're the majority. And even in a city like Houston, where melanated people, Black people may not be the majority, that doesn't mean that we can't control certain spaces that are the majority, like a District D, or what was it, District 18. There are still things that we can do, but we will never be able to do those things if we're not in control and understanding what this thing is all about. So I'm going to show the first clip. Hope I can. Yeah, I'm going to show the first clip of the documentary. I remember I tried to record it and it didn't work the first time around, but hopefully I can share it and it'll play. Sometimes they be blocking stuff. All right, so I'm gonna play this first clip and then jump right into the rest of the presentation. Okay.
This is when we often look away from sort of this moment of civil rights. We say the Voting Rights Act is passed, right? The white folk around the country, in the North, they're like, well, what else you Negroes need, right? You got the Voting Rights Act, we're done, right? We weren't just interested in the vote. We were interested in changing who ran the county. If we're 80% of the county,
why don't we think about power? Because our view was, if you wanted to end the brutality of the sheriff, you needed to become the sheriff. If you wanted better education, you needed to control the mechanisms of education. If you wanted to do the various kinds of tax assessors, tax collector, you needed to assume all those positions.
You ain't talking about overthrowing anything. We're talking about becoming a part of it. It was a real effort to have Black people participate in government.
Right. So that's the first clip.
Who came
Oops,
in
sorry.
Alabama.
I'm going to zoom
That
to the
Mississippi.
second clip, and then we can go through this brief presentation I put together, and I can do my very best to lay all this stuff out. Okay. All right.
But we as a people need to get our act together. Because we're sinking. We need to. Oh, I don't care what no one says. We need to vote.
Yes, sir.
And we need to put people in office that's gonna do it better. We got people in office who ain't doing jack.
Yes, sir.
And look what we want. Look where we are. And pretty soon next year, it's gonna be worse. They're gerrymandering here.
Yes, sir.
Because they want to keep the status quo. And like Craig said earlier, they're trying to put us back on the people.
Yes, sir.
They're trying to do that. And we're allowing it to happen because we're not voting. Again, I don't care what no one says. Get off your dairy air.
Come on.
And vote. Because that's the only weapon we have.
Yeah.
If it wasn't a weapon, they wouldn't be
Exactly.
handling it. Really? People always say, my vote don't count. Yes, it does. It counts. Because again, if it didn't, it wouldn't gerrymander.
Come on.
They just leave it like it is. And one more thing I want to say, because I know there's some people out there of the other persuasion. The powers that be don't care about the poor and the lower middle class.
That's right.
They don't care. So if you're poor, I don't care if you're black, white, pink, or blue. And I was saying this at this rally event yesterday. If you don't vote to change the leadership that's going on now,
Come on.
they're gonna destroy this. And I say, be prepared. I'm preparing myself for when next year happens. Trump's policy is going to take effect. And it's going to take effect strongly next year. Be prepared. If not, you're gonna sink. And I appreciate you. So, Brother Ken hits on several key points, especially the political aspect. When you watch the documentary, there's a major point that was made because Sister Lee, we had the federal government. George Bush was on vacation. When it did one event, I mean, they record all this. They recorded all this. So the federal government wasn't caring. They had a guy who was over FEMA, who was his horse racing buddy. Kathleen Blanco had issues with Ray Nagin. Ray Nagin, as Kitty was just talking about, wasn't prepared. So the federal government failed, the state government and the local government. And one of the biggest things that you would hear in the video, people were complaining, and then most of the people complaining don't vote. Where's President Bush? Help us. Yo. People, some kind of way, slavery did such a number on our people that when integration kicked off, pseudo-integration kicked off in 1970, some kind of way, we really believe that everything is okay. A lot of people really believe that they can't be put back on a plantation.
they really don't know that you're only perceptively free because of public policy of vote. This is reality. And Courtney, I know you're just 37, but I mean, they could put you back on the plan. Slavery still exists right now if you're incarcerated. You know, most of us are still slaves to jobs, but if you're incarcerated, you can still be put back in slavery. So they're creating more and more situations for people to violate so they can be put into prison. And so Katrina exposed a lot of that. People complaining but not even voting. And then now the poverty was so major. Most of the people, you know, I bumped into people who had means that they had come up to Shreveport. They were staying at the Holiday Inn and other hotels. Poor people couldn't do that. And so, Ken, I want you to come up because Ken was in Austin, and Austin was one of the designated areas that they sent quite a few of our folks. And like I said, my father-in-law and grandmother-in-law, they ended up in Round Rock, which is right outside of Austin. But he has a perspective as well. And again, not all of our folks were disruptive, but there were quite a few of them that were. And this is a reflection 20 years after Hurricane Katrina. Right here.
Thank you, Craig. Good morning, everyone. I kind of like Kenneth Gordon a little bit. I wanted to help you. You looking at things that you realize that New Orleans was different. Very different. And I lived in Austin, Texas. We had a big group of people came there. The community reached out and wanted to help. Texas is a little different. You know, at a point they expect you to kind of start taking care of yourself. And there were folks who had been there 6 months or a year, still expecting the city and everybody else to provide a place to stay or provide this. And we had jobs in Austin. There were people, they were coming to find people saying, you want to work, we have jobs. And so they wanted to help people get on their feet. And I was trying to create, some people hit the ground running, some didn't. And a lot of them had jobs and did things, and some struggled and probably some are still there struggling that I know of. And this is one of those things where Kenny talked about the school system, the kids that were at a grade level in New Orleans couldn't compete at the grade level in Houston, in Austin. They were fourth grade in New Orleans, they came to Austin, they were in the fourth grade, and they couldn't keep up. And so they realized that they had to do something different. So I think a lot of things were exposed that were going on in New Orleans from that standpoint they were different. We didn't have a lot of public housing and also we had some housing assistance. The mindset in Austin will help you, but I'm not giving you a place to live. I'll help you pay you rent. I'll help you with that till you get on your feet. Yeah, like I said, that lasted for a while. And at some point, the people in Austin started saying, hey, we've done what we've done. You've been here 2 years. And then you start to see that mindset change. Yeah. From that standpoint. Kenny talked about going down, trying to help people and do things. And I had friends who lived in Austin from New Orleans. And had relatives they attempted to help the Lord to help, they were in the same mindset. You know, I'm gonna do things for a while and at some point. And then you talk to people, you find out what they had issues before they got there. And so a lot of that just came to bear. It wasn't just Katrina, there were things going on in New Orleans that people weren't dealing with. And you just have to get ready for that. Kenny talks about what do we do, and you know, I've got a mindset. Craig, you and I have talked about this a little bit. I'm at a point now I've stopped talking about other folk and expecting things from other people. Yeah. And we have to start taking care of ourselves and figure out what our next move is and not what somebody else needs to do, because that's not gonna happen.
Exactly.
And, but this has gone on a long time. My dad was born in 1912. His grandmother was a slave, one of the slaves. She told him that when slavery ended, you know, we kind of think that everybody left the plantations running.
No,
She said that a lot of people didn't want to leave.
Exactly.
They had to put them off the plantation.
yeah,
They did not want to leave. And that mindset is
Yeah.
not really ever since then. I mean, and that's some what you talk
Yeah.
about, Greg, you know, they're gonna put it back on the plantation. Some of them,
Yeah.
it's still there. And I think that, uh, you and I were talking earlier about Hurricane Katrina. It was horrible storm. The thing is, it was out there. They knew it was out there.
yeah,
We saw it coming. It was 5 days warning. And it was an opportunity to do the best you could to try to get out. And so I think that's a lesson for all of us, that you gotta take care of yourself.
yeah,
Nobody else gonna take care of us. And we had to figure out a way to how we did that. That next storm may not be a hurricane, but you know, there's other stuff coming down the pipe. We see right now that's gonna change the attitude about things in America. And we can sit here and say, well, they shouldn't do that and they need to change their, they're not gonna change their mind. We need to figure out, Kenny Gordon just said, how are we gonna deal with next year? There's some stuff coming down the pipe.
yeah,
What to deal with. And nobody's gonna come hold our hand. We gotta figure out what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
But Katrina was tough. It was tough. You had a natural situation because of the way geographically New Orleans
Yeah.
in that bowl was only 2 or 3 ways in and out. It was a perfect storm that caused all these people not prepared to deal with, not prepared to figure out how do I get out of here? How do I? And you have people in New Orleans say, I don't know anybody outside of this house. I don't know anybody in Baton Rouge. I don't know anybody in Mobile. I don't know anybody in Freeport that I could go stay with.
Yeah.
That's rough. That's rough. You know, most of us right here, if something happened in Freeport, you know, I know some folks that died.
That's right. That's right.
Where I can go stay. And it was a perfect storm that exposed what was going on, and hopefully it's a lesson not only for America, but a lesson for us that, you know, we're going to figure our way out of this, because we can sit here and say what somebody else should be doing, they're not gonna do it.
Yeah.
What's our next move to get ourselves ready? You always send out on your text about the people who educate and prepare themselves for
Yeah.
tomorrow. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to educate ourselves. We got to get prepared for other stuff that's coming down the pipe. But you know, I just saw the folks with Katrina coming. I was telling you, I was in a barbershop, I know a year, 18 months after folk got there. And they were coming in the barbershop one day and said, hey, y'all give free Katrina haircuts? My barber said, what's a Katrina haircut?
Wow.
They don't give nothing free.
Wow.
Yeah, we did that for 6 months.
Wow.
Y'all been there 2 years.
Wow.
And this is the community talking.
Yeah.
Wasn't the Mayor Austin, this is the community saying, y'all been here 2 years.
Yeah.
And so that's what they ran up against, but it tells you that at some point we have to just kind of, we have to take care of ourselves and figure out. And when we see things coming, Katrina gave you a warning. So next thing you know, you can figure out what to do.
Yeah.
We got changes coming, and we've got to work on getting ready for it. But that wasn't our hope.
Beautiful. Do you all have a emergency plan? If something were to happen in Shreveport, do you have an emergency plan?
Got one of the rates.
I want Rudy to come up next. And the reason I ask, because Brother Ken hit on something very important. How many states are there inside of Louisiana? Is Louisiana one state or is it multiple states? Y'all don't know the answer. Louisiana is actually 2 states. North and South Louisiana, two totally different groups of y'all. I'm telling you that. North Louisiana, most of the African descendants here came by way of kidnapping from the Carolinas, Georgia, and Mississippi. The white folks who put our ancestors in slavery here were Scottish and Irish. Starting in and around Natchitoches, which is the first settlement of New Orleans, that's when you start to get the French, the Spanish, going all the way down to South Louisiana. They had a completely different way. These are two different groups of African descendants. Now, why is that important? Kid brought up something that's very, very important. Very few people in South Louisiana are connected with people in North Louisiana. Very few. I'm talking about just from a genealogical standpoint, because it's two different groups of people. Same from north to south, but we're at a higher elevation. They're below sea level in New Orleans, in South Louisiana. So they had no plan. There's no thought. I want y'all to just think about that. People are walking around every day, no thought process of being prepared. They're looking for FEMA, Homeland Security, the police. In the documentary, you're going to see people, but it's like 20 feet of water outside and people calling 911. You hate the police, now you calling the police. Make it make sense. So again, there were some courageous guys like Joe who were going around saving folks. But the majority of our people don't even have a game plan for insecurity. Let Katrina be a lesson in community and definitely family. You know, how many of you remember when we used to sleep on pallets at each other's houses when we had Big Mama? How many Negroes sleep on a pallet? Yeah, you see what I'm saying? That's what. Because we don't connect on that level anymore. We don't want to be in each other's houses. So when you're not connected with family, now you ain't got nobody to call in an emergency. You ain't got nobody to call. And so a lot of the folks in New Orleans didn't have anybody to call in Houston or Dallas or Shreveport, or they didn't have anybody to call. And if the same thing happens to us, a lot of us ain't gonna have people to call, because a lot of us that fell out with family members, don't want to talk to certain people. This is where we're at. Brother Rudy, give us your take, because you were here. I know you helped with some of the individuals who came up with Hurricane Katrina. Give us your take.
Okay, so that was Brother Craig. That's the brother that started our political party in the 90s. Brother Keevan, you will most certainly meet him soon. So I'm going to jump into my the presentation for this morning. I will zoom through it. It's not I think it's maybe 5 or 6 slides. And I'm going to touch on those critically important things that we need to be thinking about and be mindful of as it relates to leadership in our community. Leadership that comes from the community, leadership that's ground up as opposed to top down. So the topic of today is understanding the crisis of grassroots community-based leadership. And of course, that's what we want to deal with. Everything is about power. All of this, especially local politics, is a play to control, a play and a maneuver to control local resources. Those resources are what makes a person's life a living hell, bearable, or good. And we want to make sure that we're always working to put ourselves in a position by which we can control the bulk of those resources to ensure that people that need those resources get those resources. More often than not, other people control those resources. They have different agendas, and poor people, no matter what they look like, they lose out. And we want to flip that script, but of course you can't flip that script if you don't understand that script. And most of us don't even want to read the script. So as the brother said in the first in the opening clip I showed from Lowndes County and the Road to Black Power, which of course everybody needs to watch. He said, quote, "We weren't just interested in the vote. We were interested in changing who ran the county. If we're 80% of the county, and at that time there were 0 Black people registered to vote, 80% of the population, 0 registered to vote. Why don't we think about power? Because our view was, if you wanted to end the brutality of the sheriff, you need to become the sheriff. If you wanted better education, you need to control the mechanisms of education. If you wanted to do the various kinds of tax assessor, tax collector, you need to assume all those positions. You weren't talking about overthrowing anything. You were talking about becoming a part of it. This was a real effort to have Black people participate in government. This was in the 1966, 65, 66, well over 60 years ago. How much are we trying to get grassroots populations to participate in government? Most people don't vote, no matter where you go in this country. Any election, 75, 80, 85% of people don't vote. Registered to vote, could vote, but they don't vote because there's a disconnect. And there's a disconnect because they've never seen politics benefit their lives. And they don't understand that politics is going to affect you every day of your life, but you don't see it benefiting you because other people are controlling those politics. And what we're saying in our organization and in our political efforts is that if we're going to ensure that politics has a positive effect, it has to be ran and led by different people. We have people becoming mayors of cities. I think Bel Air was one of them, with 3, 4, 5, 800 votes to run a city. Because most of the people don't vote in these spaces. And a lot of these spaces, over 1,500 of them in this country, are predominantly Black. So what if we had a grassroots, community-based, melanated person running these spaces? It would completely change the lifestyle of those people in those spaces because the leadership will be different in those spaces. And we're saying what the brothers and sisters were saying here in Lowndes County 60 years ago. If we're the majority, we need to run it. And they started to do things where they were able to win some elections, but they didn't understand that if you win an election and you don't control the local economics, then you're still going to lose because you need the money as well. And that's why it's so important that across the board, especially if we're the majority in a space, we have to be running that space from top down because the money has to go along with the politics. So you guys will have heard me say a lot, grassroots, but what are the grassroots? A grassroots organization or movement is one that uses the people in a given district, region, or community as the basis. The basis means it's the most important thing for a political or social movement. Should I be seen here? Let me do this real quick. Just gonna say that. Okay. Grassroots movements and organizations use collective action from volunteers at the local level to implement change at the local, regional, national, or international levels. And this is why I get so sad when we talk about top, because powerful organization could be doing a bunch of stuff. We got to have a meeting with them. Grassroots movements are associated with bottom-up rather than top-down decision-making and are sometimes considered more natural or spontaneous than more traditional power structures. Do we have grassroots decision-making in our communities right now? Our community, exactly. Our decisions that are being made in our communities right now, are they coming from the bottom up? Are they coming from the people? And they're not. And they're not coming from the people because the leadership isn't trying to include the people, and the people aren't trying to include themselves. So that disconnect, that's very real, that does exist, it's the responsibility of the leadership to bring them into it and for the people to want to be brought into it. But like Brother Malcolm said a number of years ago, Black people aren't stupid. We're just too busy trying to survive to think about anything else. But we got to understand that local politics is a part of that survival. Because if you have local political power, the survival becomes less of survival and you can live because you have some resources. And what we have to understand that if we don't have the proper leadership, we'll always be struggling to survive and struggling to hang on, which is a part of the problem. So the usual community issues. I've been going to a super neighborhood meeting that happens in the community for maybe for the last year and a half. And before that, I was going to another community meeting for years. And the issues that we were always talking about and always trying to deal with are always the same. The illegal and Ms. Fontenot and Brother Wood, you guys have heard these for God knows how long. Illegal dumping, abandoned buildings, zoning laws not being adequate or being upheld, traffic signs, having proper parks, good parks for the kids and for the community. Those are the relatively minor issues. And the major ones are education, crime, flooding, poverty, homelessness. Who's advocating for the community to the decision makers? No matter where you go in this city or in this country, these issues are going to be the same over and over and over and over and over again. But when we look at other communities, they have money, they have access, they have connections. They don't have these issues. Why? Because they have leadership that's looking out for the community, and they get what they need. When Brother Travis McGee, who runs a super neighborhood, I think it's 72. Thank you. He was trying to get money for a park. What's the name of the park? Edgewood? Edgewood Park. Millions of dollars have been advocated for 16, 17 years, very long time, but they still have yet to get the money. And when he went to visit another park in another community, the park in the Black community can't get it cleaned up, can't get grass cut, can't get money to rebuild it, can't get porta potties taken care of, can't get stray dogs picked up, all kind of issues. But he went to this other park. They got valet parking. They got food vendors. You can go get a drink. I mean, it's like two different worlds. But that's not just South Park, Sunnyside, Third Ward, Houston, Texas. That's any predominantly Black space in this country because we don't have proper leadership. And when you have good leadership, things happen. And the leadership that we have, it looks like us, but they don't think like us. They have other motivations, which is why the community continues to suffer. And on the face of it, it may seem like it's not a big deal. And I remember, Brother Keeban, when you spoke last week, you talked about being raised in a fashion where you benefited from community service. And that's why you talk about there need to be a reinvigoration of a new kind of New Deal or another New Deal. That's important. But if you don't have the people who are thinking about it, who are making those connections to try and bring that existence into being, you continue to suffer. And the suffering is only going to become more and more severe because America is changing. And it's not changing in a good way for melanated Black people or for poor people. So why does so little get done? Our communities, again, lack strong, connected leadership. Why are so many predominantly melanated and poor communities constantly dealing with the same issues over and over again? Why is there no seriously concerted effort to educate the populace and bring them into the fold of local government? Why have we been unable to properly mobilize and organize, sorry for that typo, to control the spaces where we live? Because we don't have leadership from the bottom up, as opposed to top down. We have people who are disconnected, disinterested, individualistic, and unconcerned. Their motivations are money, status, and materialism, so the people suffer continuously. You guys know about my efforts to shed light on a sexual predator HISD cover-up issue. We've been dealing with this since last April. So I went to City Hall to speak to try and get some support from the city. I went to the school board before we had smoking gun evidence and after. And I'm reading a Freedom of Information Act summary of what the sexual predator actually did. And this summary can only exist if they have evidence, which they did. So I'm reading this very graphic summary of what this adult was doing to try and have sex with this student, this child. And after I got finished reading it, along with a few other statements that I made, nobody from the city or from the school board, before evidence and after evidence, nobody came up to me and said, "My God, this is awful. What can I do to help? What can my office do to help?" Nobody. when I was at the city, when I was at school board, people talking about some of everything, their concerns, their issues, their community. Especially with the city, everybody was thanked for coming up. A few people said, talk to my guy on your way out. A few people said, let's talk about this more. A few people got up and walked around. I'm talking about the sexual predation of at least one child, and I guarantee you this more because predators don't prey once, and nobody said to me, oh my God, what can I do to help? Nobody. That's telling. So I can only conclude that you don't come up to me and at a minimum, you say, this is a lot. Let me do some research. This is a lot. Give me what you have so I can verify it. Something to at least show that you give a damn. But I can only conclude that you don't give a damn because you didn't come up and ask me anything. I could be full of crap. I could be lying. It could be personal. It could be whatever. But when you don't come up and find out, I can only reach one conclusion. And those are the kind of problems that we have in our communities as as I related to all the problems that we have, going to these super neighborhood meetings, going to other community meetings, these problems are ongoing and it's always the same. Why? Because the people who are supposed to be looking out for the community don't. The people that we elect to look out for us don't. The people who have access to the resources, who can do something, are redirecting those resources to other spaces. So the community continues to suffer and it doesn't get bigger, better, and stronger because the leadership is looking in other places. And I venture to say that when we have had strong leadership, because they were strong leadership, and when we have had righteous movements, they've been destroyed because they were righteous movements. They've been destroyed because they were strong leaders. And we have to get back to identifying people in the community who are already doing the work, people in the community who are unafraid of the work, and get them to run, not to be a politician, because that has a negative connotation to it, but to be a political advocate for the people. Because if we don't get people who care about us to run, then the community is going to continue to suffer. And it's going to continue to suffer in a level that we have not seen since slavery. And it could even be worse because at least during slavery, they will only do so much to hurt the slave because the slave was property. And you don't want to hurt your property because you need your property to make your money. And after slavery was, quote unquote, abolished, what physical slavery was, it's still legal, as Brother Craig said, in prison. There's actually the 13th Amendment actually says slavery is illegal unless you've been convicted of a crime. So slavery still happens, it just happens if you're incarcerated. And more is being done to make it easier to incarcerate people. And we don't understand that everything we've gone through since we've been here has been public policy. What's that mean? That means that somebody had an agenda, somebody had an idea, they shared that with some people, they organized themselves around it, and they voted on it. Everything we've been through has been public policy. We can be put back into slavery because we don't have any power to stop anything, especially if we're disconnected politically. So we don't understand what's at stake because we're not paying attention. And if our leadership is not forcing the people to pay attention, like when I went to speak to the city, Carolyn Shabazz, who's the councilwoman for District D, where this sexual predation happened, proven sexual predation, she was proud in saying that I heard a rumor, I stepped back. I said, kudos to you. Congrats. What did you do? For 8 months before this thing came out, what did you do to make sure that the kids were safe? What did you do? What did you do to inform the parents? What did you do to find out if there were other victims? What did you do to work with the school to get the kids counseling? She didn't do anything. And you only not do anything because you don't care. Because if you care, you do something. You try. So when her chief of staff called me the next day, we had a conversation. He's like, brother, what did you expect her to do? I'm like, get to the truth. I'm trying to find the right words. I'm on camera. Get to the truth. You know, and I guarantee you, to make it even worse, if it was their daughter, if it was their niece, if it was their nephew, if it was anybody that they were connected to, I guarantee you they'd be all over it. But again, because there's a disconnect, because there's a lack of concern, because the people who are in leadership who look like us but don't think like us, don't feel like us, they don't give a damn. And it's obvious because the community is getting worse. And again, what's coming, which I'm about to get to, it's frightening if you're paying attention. Like we were having, as I said last week, I think I said it last week, I try to say it every week. We were having Project 2025 presentations February of last year. And we had about 8 of them. We were doing a citywide tour of the documentary I'm going to send to you, Bad Faith. We were doing a citywide tour because the documentary was, I mean, it gave you a direct viewing of the mindset of the people who are pushing this version of Project 2025. And I say version because most people don't know that this most recent one was the 5th one. The first one was when you weren't born. You and I, we were like 4 or 5. It was President Reagan. That was the first version. And he was able to implement like 30% of what they wanted him to do. Trump is ahead of schedule at like 60, 70, 80%. So all those things that helped you to be you, they're trying to cut out all of that. And it's a problem. And if we don't have the right leadership that understands it's a problem and we got to prepare for it, you're talking about another level of oppression that we haven't seen since since the 13th Amendment came out to be was signed. So what did the brother say? What did the brother say at this last Tuesday morning breakfast? There were 2 Brother Kens. The dark skinned one is Brother Ken 1. I don't know their last names. So Brother Ken said we got to vote. Vote. And this is something that you guys have probably heard. A lot of people say voting don't matter, my vote don't count, blah, 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 blah. Well, fool, if it didn't matter, if it didn't count, why would they try so hard to keep you from doing it? Why do they work so hard to make it more difficult for people to vote? The first documentary I'm going to send you, Brother Kevin, Rigged, is about them rigging the system so people can't vote. Like Brother Ken said, voting is the one thing that we can still do legally to create change. And since they know that, they want to eliminate as many people as possible's ability to vote. The second documentary I'm going to send you, Bad Faith, the guy who started the Christian right movement, he says on camera, we don't want everybody to vote. Because the more people that vote, the more we are guaranteed to lose because our agenda isn't for the masses. It's for people with money. That's a problem. So when we have people who say that voting don't matter, they don't understand that voting matters a great deal. Voting is everything. Because again, if you don't vote, that means that someone else's agenda is being enacted upon you as opposed to your agenda happening for you. So Brother Ken said we got to vote. He said right now we're voting for people who don't care because we are voting based on them looking like us, them saying good words. We don't look at their track record. We just look at what they say, how much money they may have raised, what party they're part of. So we vote for people, and we're voting for the wrong people because the community is getting worse. Brother Ken said those in power don't care, and we know that because the community, nothing changes, it gets worse. And we have to prepare as a community. We got to prepare for what's coming, and trust me, what's coming is bad. Again, they're ahead of schedule on Project 2025, and it's not going to get any better. Brother Ken, number 2, light-skinned Ken, he said it's time to start thinking for ourselves. We need to figure out our next move, and that next move it's going to be a doozy. We can't afford to wait for others. And Brother Craig said local leadership was not prepared as it relates to Katrina. And that's something else that if you guys haven't seen this Katrina, I think it's called Come Hell and High Water on Netflix. You got to watch it because it's eye-opening as far as the devastation of it. That's one thing. But I didn't know that they knew that if a major storm happened, what happened was going to happen. Because the city wasn't prepared for it. They didn't train for it. They didn't invest in the levees. The levees weren't even completed. They had a lot of problems. So they knew that this thing was coming. And 5 days before it actually hit, they got all the charts and the diagrams and the screens. They're tracking this thing. It's coming. They didn't do enough to get the people out. From the documentary, there was a training exercise that the city did that Mayor Nagin cut short because for whatever reason, he didn't want to deal with it. I'm not sure if it was budgetary or not, but had they gone through that exercise, they would have been able to move quicker to get the people out, and the devastation wouldn't have been as bad as it was. And again, that's what happens when you don't have the right leadership. That's what happens when you have people who are thinking more about their personal position as it relates to the needs of the people. And as it relates to the people, when the people aren't active politically, when the people aren't involved politically, you get ran over. You get ran over because nobody cares about you, which is the problem. So Brother Craig also said the people didn't plan, although they knew it was coming. The people don't vote, obviously. And as a collective community, we don't have connections to one another in the community, and we're not connected with our family members, which is also a problem. So again, who advocates for the community to the decision makers? What's coming in 2026? As I said, they are ahead of schedule on Project 2025. What they have done, they're not done. This is not a Donald Trump thing. Donald Trump isn't this smart. There are people above him with the strings controlling. There are some things I'm going to share with you that everybody isn't ready for, and I'm going to share with y'all because everybody's not ready for. There's some things that these people are working on because they don't stop. You know, they plan for their future like we plan for the weekend. They plan for their children's future like we plan our vacations. When I learned, have you got any of you guys ever heard of Boys Town by any chance? You have. Don't say nothing if you have. Have you, Mr. Fontenot? Okay. Boys Town is a summer program that they do all over the country that they've been doing since the 1930s. They got Boys Town and Girls Town. And where they send these kids to political camps, Keevan, to learn how to run cities.
What state?
State, I'm sorry, state, you're right, I apologize. Yeah, so you have heard of it. Yeah, so since, stop laughing. So since the 30s, they've been sending their kids to political camps to learn how to run cities. And here we are saying voting don't matter. That's a problem. And it's a problem because they are preparing for the future and we are not. And as long as we have leadership that's not preparing for the future, we're going to continue to get what we've been getting. So this is what's coming next year. Everything that I'm about to show you, this has already been passed. They're just waiting for it to be enacted next year. And what happens next year moving forward is going to be devastating for melanated people in poor communities. 75-80% cuts to weaken AFDC, that's food stamps. Attacks on the homeless, they're trying to make homelessness illegal, which is really interesting. Head Start and early child education cuts, all those New Deal things that help you to be you, doing away with it. Cuts to Medicaid, 65 to 70% cuts to Medicaid. Pell Grant and public education dollars are being cut. AI is replacing human jobs in the millions. They're redrawing political lines so that they can ensure their vote and other people won't be able to vote or have as much power in their vote. Trump wants to eliminate mailing in ballots, which is a big deal. Martial law is being declared in predominantly Black-led and Democrat cities. What kind of world is being created for melanated and poor communities? So what kind of world will we have if 75 to 80% of people who are on welfare or get food stamps can't get it? What if they don't have jobs? What if the opportunity to be educated and better yourself don't exist? What if there's no way to get adequate food? What if housing is an issue? There is a new kind of America is being created where there's going to be a caste system, whereby whatever caste you're born into, you're going to die in that caste because there's no opportunity for you to get out of it. The split, the gulf, the chasm between the haves and have-nots is becoming greater and greater and greater and greater. So if we, grassroots populations, no matter what they look like, if we don't get a clue and understand that not only do these people not care about us, but they've never cared about us. Another documentary I'm going to share with you called Plutocracy. We think that it's all about race, and it's not. It's about class and money. Because what they did to white people that didn't have any money, it's all about controlling labor. They've done some horrible things to people that look like them. So if they'll do it to their own, you know they'll do it to us, which they have done. And there's another, I don't know if it's a documentary It looks like a documentary, but it's a movie too, and it's called 2076. It's on Netflix. I think it's on Netflix. Netflix or Hulu, 2076. And it's eye-opening because they go back and forth between a very dismal 2076, where life is rough. People are just barely hanging on. They go back and forth between that and they're playing video clips of things that have already happened in the real world to show that 2076 is possible because these things have happened and they're connecting these dots. So if we're not paying attention, as always, there are always people connecting the dots. But the people that are connecting the dots aren't grassroots people. They're not bottom-up people. They're top-down people. So if we don't get the bottom-up people that we already know, because all of us know good people who care about the community regardless, the people who are going to work in the community because it's what they do, election or not. People who are already in the community because it's what they do, voting time or not, it's just what they do. We got to get those persons to understand that when a brother Tamani, a sister City Fontenot, a brother Will Young, when we go to speak at a commissioner's court or a city hall or school board, there's going to be people on that council that we've elected that we know are going to listen because we put them there. And more often than not, we have grassroots people who think, I don't do politics. Politics is not my thing. I can't run. But as a community, we have to say, look, man, you got to run because the people who are currently running, they look like us, but they're not us. It's like Kendrick Lamar said, they're not like us. And it's obvious that they're not like us because you don't see them until it's time to vote. And it's obvious that they're not like us because what they're talking about doing is the same thing that people always say, and they're not like Miss Raynetta always asks the candidates, what are you going to do if you don't win? So, well, you have asked that, but she always asks it. But amen, I'll take that. So we got to have people who are, regardless of an election, are always down for the people. Because if we don't have that, we're gonna lose. Amen. So we have to accept reality for what it is, and not for what we want it to be. It's like Brother Ken #2, light-skinned Brother Ken said, we are expecting people to do right by us, and they're not going to. They never have, and they never will. And the mistake that we make is that we assume because we see melanin that they're there. That's why I don't call everybody brother or sister. Or if I learn new information, I stop calling them that. Because again, just because they look like us don't mean that they are us. And every major movement we've had, every major organization, every major leader that we've had, they've been snuffed out. And we don't get sold out by people who don't look like us. We get sold out by people who do look like us because it's easy for them to infiltrate. One of the things that the sister said, anybody ever heard of Ella Baker? Ella Baker.
Yes.
I know you have. No? You never heard of Ella Baker? Awesome community organizer, grassroots through and through. She said, if the community is involved, if the community is connected, if the community has a plan, you don't have to rely so much on one leader because the community is the leader. And if you have a person that is speaking for the community sends them. So you don't have to worry. And that's what we got to have. We absolutely must have an understanding of the importance of grassroots political mobilization and organization. We got to understand that all of this is about the control of resources. All of this is about power. And most importantly, we got to understand that if we don't, in what little time we have left, and we don't move in an aggressively time-sensitive fashion to identify people who are going to look out for us, then we're going to lose. And this next loss very well could be permanent because of what they're doing right now. When I was talking about Project 2025 last year, I was saying this is what they're planning, this is what they're planning, this is what they're planning. Now I'm saying this is what they've done, and they're ahead of schedule, and they're not finished. So we have a digital magazine that you guys know about. Brother Keaton is on the cover of this issue. The person on the cover is cover story 1. And cover story 2 is what appears in the little bubble on the cover. Cover story 2 is about something you guys have not heard about it, I guarantee. But they're calling this thing that you guys have not heard about Project 2025 on steroids. That's what they're calling it. And it's called the Rock Bridge Network. Frightening what these people with money are already planning to do. So if you're attempting to play chess with someone who knows how to play chess, and you can't spell marbles, you're gonna lose. you're gonna lose because they know what they're doing. So you gotta ramp up. What is chess? What's the strategy? What are these pieces? How do they move? How do I develop a strategy? How do I win in a few moves? Fortunately for me, my father taught us how to play chess. I learned how to play chess when I was 4 or 5 years old. I'm a young five boy. I was actually the president of my chess club when in middle school. I was quite a nerd. Some people tell me I still am. Yeah, still am. But that's something that we have to teach our young people how to think. And not just how to think, but how to think critically. You're a data scientist. Thinking is important. We ignore the data. These people love the data. And they use the data to position themselves to win. But we don't do that. We don't do that because we're disconnected and we're still trying to get other people to do right by us as opposed to us doing it for ourselves. And we can't afford that because too many things are changing. And even if someone looks like us, we got to vet them because sometimes they look like you and you start doing some research and you realize, oh, this ain't me. I can't support this. So it is extremely scary because again, things are getting worse. So when I talk about grassroots organization, I end with this video. Will knows who this is. Ms. Fowler, you know who this is, right? You don't know? Will knows. Well, you know who this is, right? I'll tell you afterwards. And now keep it out, you know you don't know. So this is important. We keep it new. We must continually seek. And what's so amazing about most Black people don't know who this is. But they don't know who this is because this brother was not about being out there talking, writing books, presentations. He was not Stokely Carmichael. Y'all know who Stokely Carmichael is? Kwame Ture? What? Good speaker, great organizer, didn't leave Black people anything concrete. Not trying to take anything away from that brother, because he good speeches, good motivational organization. But what did you leave for us? This brother was not about talking, he was about the doing. Excellent orator, excellent talker, organizer, but he built communities that Black people control all over the country. This is the founder of the Shrine, Will, Reverend Cleek. Yeah. So this is when he was young. Maybe you never saw him when he was young because he was already old when we came around.
Right.
So anyway, he started an organization, a church called Shrines of the Black Madonna in 1953. And what he's talking about here is what we have to get our people to start thinking about. Because if we don't think this way, we're never going to have what we need, and other people will always be able to control us. And that's why having people who are open to running for office understand the importance of it, but understand that you have to organize the grassroots. So that's where the majority of the people are. And they can vote, but they don't vote because they're not connected to the understanding of that vote. And as long as it's one person, one vote, and it may not always be one person, one vote, but the way they're moving and what they're trying to do, they want to eliminate that. Because they understand that if people vote, we're going to lose because our policies aren't for the majority, it's for the minority. And that's a problem. So I'm going to end it with this and then we'll close this thing out.
I go back to say we have to approach the whole problem in terms of power. Let's see if I can get the bill. Get me in large white people, but we'll find white people and bring people to white people. And for Black organizations,
I know it's hard to hear with that music, but that was from a debate that they had you remember Tony Brown's journal, Miss Fontenot? Remember Tony Brown's journal? I know you remember, you're too young. Tony Brown was like he was like Tavis Smiley in the 70s. So there was a debate in 1973 called "Is It Too Late for the Black Community?" And he was on that debate with prominent leaders of Black organizations at that time. Even Elijah Muhammad, Nation of Islam, he called in, and Reverend Cleet tore him to pieces. Absolutely awesome, brother. And having been a member of the Shrine for 20 years, having lived in the community where Black people were in control of the space, my kids grew up knowing nothing about crime, drugs, hunger, none of that, because they were raised around Black people, 100%. Taught read, write, meditation, prayer, Black people. That's how it should be for all our kids. A child should know nothing about crime, drugs, fear, prostitution, pedophilia, not being properly educated. My oldest daughter was, because of the sister who ran the youth program, our kids were reading going into pre-K. And she's been so committed and devoted to Black people and Black children that when my wife was a part of the first nursery program in the early 70s, the sister was running that program then. And when my oldest daughter went to our first school in Houston, she was still running it. That's the kind of undying love and commitment we need for Black people. Because again, these other people don't stop. And if we don't have the equivalent of Black people who don't stop, we're going to lose. So when I tell people that I have think tanks that I'm organizing and always adding to, that's a foreign concept for Black people. Think tanks. Project 2025 don't happen without think tanks. They can't do what they do if they don't have somebody that's thinking about doing that thing. We got to find people who are willing to think and not just think about something that's for everybody, but something that's for us first. And more often than not, if it's for us first, everybody else will benefit because we at the bottom. So we got to get selfish. We got to circle the wagons, because when you don't have leadership that comes from you, from your community, from your people, you get leadership that don't look like you. They don't care about you. Or you get leadership that doesn't look like you. They don't care about you. And it's obvious because you go to these community meetings and the same issues are being talked about over and over and over and over and over again. And that only happens because the leadership that's elected to do, for whatever reason, don't do enough, or they get cut short. If we have 70, 75, 80% of the people, no matter where you go in this country, who can vote that don't vote, there's a problem. But the people in power, that's what they want. They don't want a lot of people voting. That's why every election they're attacking your vote. They're having you bring more paperwork, more identification. They're cutting the hours. They're cutting the polling places. They're making it more and more difficult for people to vote, because they know as long as there's one person, one vote, then change is possible. But the change that's possible is not the change that they want. And we have to understand that without grassroots, connected, corporate understanding, spiritually led leadership, we're going to lose. And we're going to lose in a major way. We're losing now. And what Trump is doing now, I mean, we don't look Hispanic, so we don't have to worry about anybody scooping us up yet. But just imagine, it reminds me of slave patrols, which is how the police got started. You know, somebody identifies you by the color of your skin, and they ask you for your papers, you ain't got no papers, and they arrest you. And they are sending these people to countries that they've never been to. I mean, literally. And they're sending these people to countries that they've never been to that they ain't coming back. They're just not. So, like Angela Davis said, if they come for me at night, they'll come for you in the morning.
Yeah.
So we gotta pay attention. Because these people aren't playing games. And if we don't have our own communities, if we don't run our own cities, if we don't have our own security on multiple levels, then you're open game for those that do have those things. And we can't afford to think that's them. I'm an American citizen. Because that can easily be like Trump said when he was running, I can shoot somebody in Fifth Avenue and they'll still vote for him. And it was funny, but it wasn't funny. Because he was right. January 6th happened because of him. Right? So if we're not paying attention to what's happening in the country, the things that are happening to other people, that our people have gone through, and much worse, it could very well happen to us. And all of it starts with the right leadership. Cool. All right. On that note, any questions?
I'll text you. I got a lot of questions.
All right, we've talked. All right, so thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for coming Thursday morning breakfast. We'll see you guys next week. Next week will be our panel, Brother Keevan. I think, yeah, next week is the 11th. Yeah, that's our panel. So I'm most certainly looking forward to you being there, so we can make sure that people know who you